What is up guys, Flashfire here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a list of the top 10 strongest Pokemon that are going to be available in Pokemon Sword and Shield for competitive battling. These are Pokemon that have been strong in previous generations and are available in the new Pokédex to bring forward and just absolutely dominate the competitive meta. I'm joined today by John, aka Pokemon, who's going to start off our list for us.
Before I jump into the first Pokemon we're going to be talking about, do know that on my channel we're going to be going over the worst returning Pokemon with a little bit of a twist, as every generation some Pokemon do get a buff as they go into the game, whether it's stats, new abilities, new items. So we're going to go over the 10 worst returning Pokemon and then our ways to have those buffed. But getting back to the good ones, let's talk about Aegislash. Now, I already know there's a lot of people who play in the Smogon tiers who are saying, Aegislash, that'll be banned, I tell you. And while you're probably correct, we don't know that for sure. And Aegislash is still going to be really, really good in doubles formats and then the, built-in singles format in the actual games. You will still see this Pokemon. It will be around in the beginning, and this is a menace. You need to be ready for it, as this thing can do a little bit of everything. Now, if you don't know about Aegislash, it does have stance change, which just makes it so that this Pokemon is not only elite on the defensive side in its, shield form, but when it gets into that sword form, it's elite on the offensive side. 150 in the defenses into 150 into the attacking slots. Now, when it is in that attacking spot, you can, take this thing out pretty easily as its defenses are lowered, which is really nice. But beyond that and its low speed, it really has everything going for it. It can be good on the physical side. On the special side, you can set up with Sword Stance. It has priority. This is something where when you see Aegislash, you don't immediately know what it's going to do, how it's going to hit you offensively, which is really, really scary. Not only that, this can also be a really good defensive Pokemon. It has King Shield, an incredible protect, getting it back into the defensive stance. It can, hit you with a Gyro Ball, which is a solid move for a defensive Pokemon like this that will still be very scary when it moves into that attack slot. It can toxic things. It's just an all-around fantastic mod. There's a lot to talk about. 3 immunities, all these resistances. I know it will probably be banned in the formats you play in, but as long as it's around, be wary and make sure to use it while you can.
Okay, while Aegislash has always been a dominant force in the meta since it's been released, the next one I'm going to talk about is going to be Conkeldurr. This guy was huge in Generation 5, absolutely smashed through pretty much anything that you put in front of him, that 140 base attack stat, as well as Guts, Iron Fist, or Sheer Force, all complementing his insane damage output. Unfortunately, with the advent of Pokemon X and Y and the introduction of Mega Evolutions, a lot of other fighting type Pokemon with high attack stats outclassed him. Things like Mega Medicham, Mega Mawile, all are faster, have better coverage, and hit harder than him. But now that these are gone, as well as a lot of other walls and checks for him that were in Generations 6 and 7, this guy is potentially going to come back into the meta in a big way. He has a huge attack stat, good physical bulk and a high HP stat, as well as a mad amount of coverage and powerful stab moves. You've got Drain Punch to bring in recovery, you've got all the different elemental punches to fill out your move slots and complement the coverage of your team, as well as access to Knockoff and Facade, which is just a really hard-hitting powerful move if you're running the Guts Flame Orb set or something similar.
Similarly to Conkeldurr, we have Diggersby, an insanely powerful physical attacker, as it has the huge power ability. At first, seeing that 56 attack stat doesn't seem too scary, but when you pair that with huge power, it becomes one of the hardest hitting Pokemon in the game. Now, in last generation, it wasn't the scariest Pokemon. It was still really powerful, but, there was a lot of other options people used. Just looking on its Smogon page, the first things they talk about are, it faces immense competition from Mega Medicham, Mega Mawile, and even Hoopa-U. None of those Pokemon are going to be in these next games, or at least I'm pretty confident we won't be seeing Hoopa-U. And then a lot of the offensive threats that you were worried about, Greninja, Kartana, Kyurem, there's a good chance we don't even see those. This is a Pokemon that is such an easy plug and play, and the only reason you don't see it used a lot more, in past generations, is just other Pokemon being a little bit scarier, taking its spot. And even without that, you throw a Choice Scarf, you throw a Choice Band, it's always insanely threatening. And that's not to mention the fact that it have stab priority with quick attack, good coverage. I love this Pokemon, and I think with a limited dex, it's just going to be an insanely powerful Mon that you can really plug and play on pretty much any team.
Okay, so the next Pokemon on the list is Tyranitar. As a pseudo-legendary, this guy has always been a pick to be reckoned with throughout every single game that he's been available with. His high attack stat, as well as his respectable special attack stat, mean that he can be a threat as a physical attacker, or occasionally run that mixed set with a cheeky Ice Beam or a Fire Blast to get through those 4x weaknesses. He's also able to set rocks and weather, which can be very, very useful for specific types of teams. Obviously, we're going to be losing Excadrill going into Pokemon Sword and Shield, so it's not going to be as strong as a weather setter, but I'm sure there will still be plenty of utility for his Sandstream going forward. In terms of Generation 7 at the moment, its stab attacks are currently checked and walled quite effectively by a lot of common Pokemon, most notably Landorus T, which is in every team ever, and things like Mega Marwile, both of which are going to be gone going forward. We're not going to see them again, and that should hopefully open up a lot of offensive options for using Tyranitar. Maybe as a choice band, probably not a choice scar for that base 61 speed, lets him down a little bit, but he does have access to that Dragon Dance still, so he is potentially a very dangerous sweeper.
If you played any amount of competitive in Gen 7, you probably saw a decent dose of Toxapex, and unfortunately for a lot of people, you will see a lot more in this generation, as there really should be nothing to make this Pokemon any less viable, and instead it should just be seen even more. This is a Pokemon that has so much going for it on the defensive side. I'd really say the one thing that stands out to me as a big negative with it is it doesn't have great attacking stats. So you can actually use this as, setup fodder if you do plan around it, but so many of the offensive Pokemon that were able to take this on are probably not going to be in the game. The main ones I saw listed include Tapu Lele, Latios, Mega Gallade, Mega Alakazam, Tapu Koko, Zapdos, Mega Manectric, Landorus T, Garchomp, and Gliscor. We probably will see Garchomp and Gliscor, but after that, we're going to have to find some new ways to deal with this Pokemon, as it has 152 defense, 142 special defense, a really solid typing, Poison Water, Regenerator, which is fantastic. It has access to Recover, which is incredible to go along with Regenerator. This thing is not going down easily. It has the ability to Scald and get those burns on physical attackers. You can get that, no missing Toxic, as it's a poison type. Toxic Spikes, one of the best Toxic Spikers in the game. Haze is a fantastic ability on this Pokemon to stop things setting up on it. You can still set up on this fodder, but if they did bring Haze, all of a sudden that's useless. And if you aren't strong enough already, you're not taking this thing out. It's going to be able to stall you. It has knockoff as well. It really just has everything you'd possibly want on a defensive Pokemon. It's so incredibly annoying. It's so difficult to take out. And it's one of those mons, if you're not always prepped for it, it's going to make every game go on forever, and you will be pulling your hair out by the end of it.
Going into the new games, we are going to be getting some new typing combinations on old Pokemon. Much like the Alolan forms, we're going to be getting some Galar forms. One of the most interesting ones here is going to be Weezing, which is getting the Poison Fairy typing, which, as far as I'm aware, is completely unique to this Pokemon, as well as getting access to a brand new ability called Neutralizing Gas. Now, this new typing, this gives it a 4x resist to Bug and Fighting, as well as regular resistances against Grass, Dark, and Fairy typing. Potential immunity to Ground typing if you take the Levitate ability, or with Neutralizing Gas, you can remove any ability of an opponent's Pokemon. Now, in singles, this might not make a huge difference, as Weezing doesn't have access to things like Earthquake to take advantage of hitting Pokemon with Levitate, but in doubles, this is going to be a huge threat. Having that Neutralizing Gas out is going to potentially let you land Earthquakes on things like Rotom and just completely destroy them where you wouldn't normally be able to. As well as that, this new typing, coupled with Weezing's very strong defensive stats, it has incredibly high physical defense, is going to make it a big threat in terms of walling off Dragon and Fairy types.
I couldn't leave Pelipper off this list. This is a Pokemon that I've really grown to love. I know it's a ridiculous looking bird. I know a lot of people dislike it, but since it's got Drizzle, it's actually become an incredibly important Pokemon in all metagames, singles, doubles, wherever you're playing. You got to be wary of rain teams, as if you're not prepared, if you're not ready for them, they can absolutely obliterate you in a second. But the one thing I will say is right now, from the Pokemon Confirmed that we know of, there's not a ton of Pokemon that really are going to abuse rain. Now, we do have Seaking that has Swift Swim, which is incredible. I can't wait to sweep with that. Quillfish, which is a little bit better. Mantine probably not going to be a Swift Swim mon you use. Ludicolo is actually scary. Seismitoad's scary. And then Heliolisk and Toxicroak do have dry skin. I'm assuming we'll find out about more Pokemon with Swift Swim. There's going to be brand new Pokemon in the game. And even without that, Rain is still fantastic. You can have this cover some, fire weaknesses. And Pelipper in general is really, really solid. When Rain is up, it's never going to miss Hurricane, which is stab. It does have a 95 special attack stat, which is pretty solid on a defensive Pokemon. It does have the, Rain boosted water moves with stab, Scald. You don't want to switch into that, get a burn. It's got reliable recovery. You can defog. U-turn is fantastic. It gained that momentum. You get the Rain up, you get out of there as they switch, and all of a sudden you can sweep with a Swift Swim user. And just in general, it has a really solid defensive typing. So this Pokemon is going to be seen. It's going to be used. It's going to be great. What's really going to hold it back is how many Pokemon you can pair with it to make a really scary Rain team. We'll have to see there, but just definitely something to keep in mind as you get into competitive.
Now, while Pelipper has risen to power recently with the addition of Drizzle to its kit, the next Pokemon we're going to be talking about is something that has been a staple of OU since the start of X and Y and the release of Fairy typing. Clefable boasts a huge number of different sets that can be used both offensively, defensively, and just generally to check an awful lot of Pokemon in the current meta. Some notable things that it gets in the way of include things like Mega Lopunny and Mega Medicham, which it's able to handle pretty well. And considering that those guys are megas and have mad high attack stats, the fact that they're going to be going away and we won't be seeing any megas at all going forward mean that it's likely that this guy is going to be able to deal with pretty much anything that you throw at it, provided it's not some kind of disgusting stab gunk shot. Outside of being able to check a lot of things, as I said, it's got a decent offensive move pool. You can run Calm Mindsets on it. It's got coverage with Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Moonblast, all these things. It's also able to set up rocks and pass wishes to other members of your team. Like, what's not to love? This guy can do everything.
Ever since the introduction of Ferrothorn in the Gen 5 games, it's been a huge threat, and as long as it's in Pokemon games, it will remain a huge threat. This thing has incredible typing. It only has 2 weaknesses, which is fantastic. One of them being a 4x weakness, which isn't great, but when you have as many resistances as Ferrothorn and as many things going for it as Ferrothorn, you can deal with that. It's got 131 defense, 116 special defense, which I think a lot of people actually forget. It has a really, really solid special defensive stat. Iron Barbs, which are so annoying to go against. You can switch in, take that physical move, damage the opposing Pokemon. Rocky Helmet really doubles that. You get a Leech Seed up, and all of a sudden, you are taking away so much HP from whatever's standing in front of you, especially coupling that with the fact that Ferrothorn actually has a decent 94 attack stat. It's not going to be passive. It's not like Toxapex in that sense, as you can hit with some solid stab moves. You can even set up if you wanted with Swords Dance and be a scary offensive mon. But more than anything, this is an elite hazard setting Pokemon. You can set up spikes, you can set up stealth rocks, and it's very easy to set up the hazards with this mon. You can switch into a plethora of different Pokemon, guarantee you get something up, and if you don't want to get stealth rocks up, you don't want to get spikes up, you can go for a knockoff on the opposing Pokemon switching in. Leech Seed, Thunder Wave. This guy is great in a variety of situations. Sometimes it can be a little bit tough with the 4 move slot syndrome, but that's not really the worst problem in the world, as it just has so many useful things at its disposal. And for better or worse, you will see a lot of Ferrothorn.
Okay, so last but certainly not least today, we are going to be talking about one of the absolute staples of competitive Pokemon in general, not just OU, but VGC and all other kinds of competitive formats, and that is going to be Rotom-W. Now, unfortunately, this guy has actually made it into the Galar region, which I'm a little bit upset about, but that's okay. It's an incredibly centralizing Pokemon, and it has been, like I say, in the meta consistently for as long as I've been playing this game. It's got a very, very strong typing. Water, Electric, it gives it only 2 weaknesses, and the bonus here, its ability Levitate makes it immune to one of those. So it only actually has 1 functional weakness, being Grass type, as well as 4 resistances at like regular, and then 1 quad resistance, which makes it incredibly strong to switch in and pivot off of lots and lots of threats in the meta. Its access to Volt Switch really helps it do that, as well as gaining access to Defog over the last little while has made it even stronger than it ever was before, which it really didn't need, let's be honest. It also has access to Will-O-Wisp and really strong stab coverage in the form of Hydro Pump, as well as Pain Split, and a number of other different moves that just make it a really sticky, bulky pivot that make it really difficult to deal with. This Pokemon is one to watch, as it has been for as long as I can remember, and there certainly won't be any shortage of washing machines in your competitive games going forward. Alright, so that's our list of the strongest 10 Pokemon that are going to be in the Galar region, guys. Be sure to check the link down below and on the screen right now to check out John's video on his channel about the 10 worst Pokemon going forward and how we think we can improve them. Also, remember, as always, subscribe.